We're at Red Rocks, Max.
Yeah.
We're partying out here.
I guess so. What was Miami's feeling after the loss? I know it wasn't a good one, but can you set the stage for us a little bit? Describe it for us.
They were very confident in the locker room that they just had an off night. Max Caleb Martin said this was a figure-it-out game for us. They feel like they can shoot it a lot better. They feel like their defense on Jokic can be a lot better. But the biggest key is they did not get to the free throw line. Twice. 2 free throws all night. Jimmy Butler said, I've got to be better. I have to be the one that sets this tone and gets to the basket and clears out the space for everybody else. So as far as tweaking and what Eric Spoelstra and his team are looking at in film session today, it is to be more aggressive, it is to be more physical, and it is to set a tone that we're used to seeing from them, and it's what Denver did, beating them at their own game last night.
Okay, so I still have the Heat winning the series. I mean, of course they're the underdogs. They lost game 1 on the road after, playing a grueling 7-game series. Jimmy Butler, I'm sure his ankle's not feeling great, right? They still don't have Tyler Herro there, though it looks pretty good that he's going to be coming back. They missed every shot from the outside. They never got to the line. They cut it to single digits at one point. All they got to do is steal one on the road. Tim Bontemps, tell me why I'm crazy.
Well, look, I can understand after the way these playoffs have gone that you'd believe in the Miami Heat and believe in Jimmy Butler. But I think, to me, watching Game 1, what I saw was a pretty clear disparity between these two teams coming into this series. And if you look at the way the first 2 rounds of the playoffs have played out, Miami is in the NBA Finals because Jimmy Butler was the best player on the court, and the Heat were the more poised and disciplined team against, in particular, Milwaukee and Boston, right? In this series, those advantages go away because Nikola Jokic is the best player on the court. And when you look at how Denver attacks the game and how poised and calm and cool and collected Nikola Jokic is with the ball, that advantage goes away. So then you're just looking at the fact that Denver's a better, bigger, deeper team, and it's going to take Miami having outlier shooting performances. It's going to take Jimmy Butler doing Herculean things for them to have a chance. And by the way, if you're watching that game last night, if you're a Boston Celtic fan or a Boston Celtic player, after they went 28 for 58 over the final 2 games of that series, and then Caleb Martin and Max Strus are 1 for 17 from 3, pretty dramatic regression of the mean in Game 1, too.
Meantime, Nick Friedel, it does seem to me that the Nuggets might just be one of these teams that gives you the sense that these other teams are in the game, like the Lakers were in all 4 games, but that were the Lakers to kick it up a notch, the Nuggets would simply do the same thing. What do you think right now?
I agree with you completely. It felt like the Nuggets were playing with their food most of the night, Max. The Heat were never really in that game. Once Jokic starts passing the way that he does and he opens up those lanes for everybody else, they have weapons everywhere. If they're hitting shots and the Heat aren't, Miami is in big, big trouble.
Porter Jr. really hasn't even gotten hot these whole playoffs. Like, he's the kind of shooter that all of a sudden can...
That's the thing. They played a B-minus game, and they won handily.
Nick Nurse was in. All right. Nikola Jokic got a triple-double in his finals debut. Jamal Murray with 26 points, and the Nuggets had little trouble with the cold from outside Miami Heat. I mean, they couldn't hit a shot.
Cold from everywhere.
Yeah, from everywhere. They didn't get any free throws. 2 free throws the whole game. Easy win Game 1 for the Nuggets Thursday night. Jimmy Butler with 13 points and no trips to the line. The Heat had only 2 free throw attempts, as I mentioned, total. And you are looking at Aaron Gordon, introduced as the Sixers' newest head coach on Thursday, and it took the Philly media no time to welcome him to the city of brotherly love. Check it out.
Do you want James Harden back?
Pardon me?
Do you want James Harden back?
James Harden's a great player.
That didn't answer the question.
Well, I would say this is that James has a decision to make, and I'd be very happy if he came back. Yeah.
Was he not expecting that question? This season, there were flashes of the old James Harden, scored 40-plus points in 2 games in the postseason, the most by a 76ers player in a single postseason since AI, also had 2 in the 02-03 season. He also led the NBA this regular season in assists per game. Tim, Nick, here's the thing about James Harden. What seems to be going on to me is a negotiation. Harden, even when, there's an appetite to give him $200 million. Okay, I don't know, someone from Harden's campus league, where is that information coming from? It seems to me Harden wants to make people believe he wants to leave. The Sixers seem to be negotiating, and they want to pay him, but maybe not what he's looking for. Harden's good, guys. He's still a really good player. And he is maybe once upon a time a little overrated. And now he seems to me to be an underrated player. If you're looking for a guy to be a killer in the fourth quarter in a Game 7 in the playoffs, this is never going to be your guy. But if you're looking for a guy to help get you there, yeah, Harden can do that. Nick, how do you think Nick Nurse and James Harden, if Harden were to stay, would mesh?
Nurse has made it very clear in time, Max, that he can make different players work together. So I'm sure he can get more out of James Harden. What worries me, though, is if you're trying to win a title, where has Harden in the last few years shown you that he's going to get you that much closer to it? And the second point would be Nick Nurse is a really good coach, but he's also really opinionated. What happens when Nick Nurse starts calling out whether it's Harden or Embiid, and that part of the relationship turns a little bit and the tenor is changed? That's what would be concerning moving forward. I would still believe it when I see it when Harden returns to Philly, but I think Nurse can get a little bit more out of Embiid. I just don't know if that roster has enough to get them to where they ultimately want to go for a title.
Does it, Tim? Is there enough on the roster now, more or less, where Nick Nurse could unlock it?
I think the key to me going forward is Tyrese Maxey, a guy we've talked about a lot, a guy Nick talked about a lot yesterday at that press conference. I was there for it. And when Tyrese Maxey's name came up, he lit up. And he talked about Tyrese Maxey for a couple minutes. Like you said, I think James Harden at this point is a little bit underrated as a player. He still had a really good year. He was a borderline All-NBA player, and he had a couple of massive games in that Celtics series. Now, he obviously is going to also have games on the other end of the ledger in the postseason. We've seen that time and again. But the Sixers are going to be relying on Joel Embiid to be healthy and be dominant, which he could have been better in that series, as he himself said, and he obviously wasn't 100% healthy. And then Nick Nurse's job to me is to get more out of Tyrese Maxey, continue to have him develop into being an All-NBA, All-Star caliber guard. If that happens, then this team can go up another level. If it doesn't, they sort of are what they are. And that, to me, is the swing piece.
So Embiid, the MVP, carries them. Harden is part of the orchestration of that. Tyrese Maxey is your ascending star finisher in those situations where Harden and even Embiid don't seem like they can be. And maybe Tobias Harris is a Swiss Army knife on not only on the defense, which he was, but also on the offense. And if all that happens, is that a championship team?
Look, the Sixers had the worst possible matchup in the second round playing the Boston Celtics. They match up worse against them than any team in the league. And they went 7 games with Joel Embiid at less than 100%. So I would have understood if Doc Rivers was brought back. I thought he did a really good job. But this team is a championship caliber team. And the other thing to factor in here, too, we've seen time and again, Daryl Morey is one of the best guys in the league at finding ways to add talent to his roster. And I would suspect that this summer, Philly is going to be aggressive in trying to get better because they see how wide open the league is and they believe they can get there. And to me, if they can add some players to this roster especially, they're right in the mix with all these other teams to win a title next year.
I agree with the identification of Daryl Morey as a reason to be optimistic, a very good GM. And that's really where it all starts. All right. Nick Friedel, have fun at the Taylor Swift concert. Thank you for being on the scene. Coming up.
Always.
Lamar Jackson.